If our class dissected a rabbit, I think it would be most similar to a rat dissection. They're close related species. They're both mammals, similar sizes, and probably have very similar body systems. Rabbits and rats both have complete digestive systems. So a rabbit will most likely have an alimentary canal that begins with a mouth and ends with an anus. It'll use its specialized teeth to mechanically break down food, and then use salivary glands to chemically break down food. From there, the food will move down to the esophagus and then into the stomach, where it'll be further broken down by gastric juices. From there, it'll move to the small intestine, pass through the cecum, and into the large intestine. From there, waste will finally be removed through the anus. Both animals are air-breathing vertebrates, so their lungs are going to be a major organ of their respiratory system. So if we assume that they have similar systems, the air will first be inhaled through nostrils or external nails, and then into the naropharynx. From there, it'll go to the larynx, to the trachea, and then to the lungs. From the lungs, the trachea divide into bronchi and then into bronchioles. And then the bronchioles empty into small air cells called alveoli. There's a network of capillaries that deliver oxygen through the blood or hemoglobin to the rest of the circulatory system and organs. And then carbon dioxide from there will be exhaled. So this is a similar process to all mammals, even including humans. Both rabbits and rats are dioecious, so they have separate male and female organs in different individuals. They also have a urogenital system, which is the reproductive system, and also the excretory system, because both animals are mammals. And then when we compare the male versus female, I would expect that a female rabbit would look pretty much the same from the outside, but when you look closer, you'd be able to see the urethra, vaginal opening, and an anus. If you go up the vaginal opening, that would be inside where the ovaries are, and egg production occurs. And then for males, the male would have a penis on the outside, a scrotum, and an anus. And then from the inside, or from the scrotum, they have testes, which is the site of spermatogenesis. So both animals would have internal fertilization and gestation. Moving on to the second question. So all of the animals that we looked at have a complete digestive system. As I mentioned before, this means that it starts with a mouth and it ends with an anus. A big difference that I'm going to go over specifically is that each animal has different organs for mechanical digestion. So an earthworm stores food into a crop and then it is moved to the gizzard. And the gizzard will use stones that the worm has previously eaten to grind up the food within the gizzard, and then it'll move on to be further digested. In the crayfish, they have what's called a gastric mill, which is like their first of, I think, 3 stomachs. So the gastric mill will use gastric teeth to break down the food before it's further digested in the pyloric stomach. Crayfish don't have teeth, so everything that's broken up is done in the gastric mill and not in the mouth. In squid, they are carnivores, so they eat a lot of prey, obviously. But they use their beak and the radula for mechanical digestion. So those break the prey into smaller pieces, and then they're later digested in the stomach. In the perch, they have really small teeth inside the mouth, and those will mechanically digest the food. When we look at the mechanical digestion of a rat, they use their teeth to mechanically digest. Because they're mammals, they have specialized teeth. So rats have long incisors and strong molars because they're omnivores, and that's how they break down their food. Now I'm going to compare the circulatory systems of all the animals. So a circulatory system must include a fluid such as blood or hemolymph, a pumping organ, which is usually a heart, and blood vessels in which the blood will circulate. So of all of our animals, the crayfish is the only one that has an open circulatory system. So it has a chamber, heart, and several arteries, but it doesn't have any veins. And the circulating fluid is hemolymph, which just gets released into the hemocell. When we look at the other animals, the earthworm, squid, perch, and rat, they all have closed circulatory systems. So that means that the blood is contained in the vessels and pumped continuously through veins and arteries. This supports bigger body sizes because it is more effective. When we compare the respiratory systems of all the animals, we'll first look at the earthworm, which is the only animal that uses its skin directly to absorb oxygen. Unlike all the other animals, it does not have any respiratory organs. Most aquatic animals will breathe through their gills, so the crayfish, the perch, and the squid all use gills for their respiratory system. When we look at the rat, it's the only animal that has lungs because it is an air-breathing vertebrate. So it respires through its mouth or its nostrils, and the large surface area of the lungs allows for maximum gas exchange. So it's the most efficient and supports the high metabolic needs. Now we'll be comparing the different reproductive systems of each animal. So when we first look at earthworms, there are only ones that are hermaphrodites, so each individual has male and female parts. But reproduction is still sexual. So two compatible individuals will exchange sperm and transfer sperm from a genital spore to a sperm receptacle. From there, a slime tube will form and then harden to form a cocoon. This does not take a lot of energy, but it can be hard to find a mate in the soil. So to combat this, the worms will produce up to 38 cocoons per year. In crayfish, they have separate sexes, so male and female. The females will carry the fertilized eggs on their body where their swimmerets are, and they'll take care of them up until the babies can live off on their own. In squid, unlike most other aquatic animals, they reproduce internally inside of the female. So a male will use a hectocotyledonous arm to take hold of the spermatophore and put it inside of the female's mantle cavity where the sperm receptacle is. From there, the eggs are released and placed on a rock or coral or sometimes even free-floating. Parents don't interfere after this point, but this does use a lot of energy as reproduction usually only happens once a life cycle, and death will follow shortly after. In the perch, they also have separate sexes, but they rely on external fertilization, which is more energy efficient. So the males and females will release lots of eggs and sperm into the environment with a low chance of them actually fertilizing and no parental investment. So this has a high probability of predation, but they do release a lot of eggs to combat. Rats reproduce through internal fertilization. They have live births and a significant gestation period. Using this strategy takes a lot of energy and parental care, but it does maximize offspring survival in complex terrestrial environments. The internal development and parental care produces fewer offspring, but rats still do have 6 litters a year, with a litter having anywhere from 5 to 10 babies. Fish have a low metabolic rate because they're exothermic, so they'll maintain the same temperature as the water surrounding them, and they don't need to put any energy into trying to maintain homeostasis. Rats, however, have a high metabolic rate to support a higher body temperature and maintain homeostasis, and so if they had the metabolic rate of a fish, it would not be able to keep up with their needs. Rats also need a lot of oxygen, and the gills of a perch would not be able to provide enough oxygen from the water.